Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Seth, psychologist, and I want to share a little psychological commentary on this case of missing Nancy Guthrie. It has certainly captured the attention of the nation, even the world in some ways. And it's understandable because people's interest in true crime has reached probably the highest level that people can ever really even remember. And it's almost at the point where it kind of begs the question, has true crime become an actual hobby for some? A hobby. And, a little psychological food for thought. Should true crime be a hobby? That's just kind of something to think about. But I want to share one point from a psychological perspective about the impact of the stress and anxiety of family members who are cast as guilty very early on. In this case, there was a tremendous public assumption about the involvement of family members in this particular case. And what this makes me think of is the recent documentary on Elizabeth Smart, the young girl who was abducted years ago from Salt Lake City. And there's actually an amazing new documentary on this on Netflix called Kidnapped, Elizabeth Smart. And what's important about that documentary is in the documentary, her father, Ed Smart, is interviewed. And he talks about what it was like for him psychologically when he felt that law enforcement and the public early on were casting him as guilty, that they were imagining that he may have had something to do with her disappearance. It was so overwhelming. He describes first of all, just having to deal with the trauma of this event, and then also the additional trauma of people assuming that he was guilty and what that might mean. And so, actually, Ed Smart talks about in the documentary how he had a psychiatric hospitalization. The stress and overwhelm that he felt was that bad. Okay. And understandably, he was innocent, and yet he was cast as guilty in the court of public opinion. Well, another case that this case made me think about, the Nancy Guthrie missing case, made me think about a recent abduction case in Memphis, Tennessee. Some of you may remember Eliza Fletcher. She was a Memphis heiress who in 2022 in September, she was out for a morning jog. This was actually pre-dawn hours, and she was missing for a few days before her body was recovered, and it was found out that she had been killed. However, early on, there was a lot of chatter online, a lot of people in the public believing that the husband had something to do with it. And what's interesting is in that case, ultimately, and before her body was found, law enforcement actually came out and released a statement and said the husband is no longer a suspect or a person of interest. They made that statement really to protect the husband. And that's understandable given what I shared about what Ed Smart talked about and just what any one of us can imagine. If we get cast in the court of public opinion as guilty for something that we are innocent of, can you imagine if we are talking in this Nancy Guthrie case about your own mother, the public, or even law enforcement believing that you may have possibly been capable of that? What I'm saying this to say is that there has not been a statement to this point from law enforcement that any family members or that specific family members have been ruled out. So the question is, and I think what a lot of people have already made some determinations about is it notable? Is the omission of law enforcement not making a statement, ruling out particular people? Is it notable? Is it important? Is it meaningful? I'm Dr. Seth, psychologist.